So what have been the moves and countermoves when Admiral Rogers went to talk to President Trump and President Trump moved his whole team? What happened next? Well, James Clapper, who is the director of national intelligence, and John Brennan, who's the director of the CIA, discovered that Admiral Rogers went to go talk to President Trump. They were very upset. They went to Obama and they asked him to have Rogers fired immediately. It should also be noted, these two people, James Clapper and John Brennan, are both two of the most vocal opponents of President Trump, both when he was candidate Trump and now that he's President Trump. Also remember that Clapper lied to Congress about domestic spying, yet you don't see Mueller trying to go and prosecute him for lying to Congress. Brennan funneled phony intel for the Steele dossier, right? So he was the one that said an Eastern Bloc intelligence partner had got all this intel and he funneled it through Brennan to put in the Steele dossier, but we were never allowed to really know where it came from or what it was or even see it because it's all phony. But it should be noted that those two, when they found out that Rogers went to go warn Trump he was being spied on, they tried to immediately have him fired. Now, Obama knew that it would be an absolute firestorm if that came out, that he fired Admiral Rogers for being a whistleblower in his last few days in office. So they chose another tactic. He colluded with the media to try and reframe, retort, make fun of him, and just completely change the issue so that nobody would ever talk about the reality, right? Again, let's not look at the reality. Let's not look at the meat of the story. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the process rather than the actual thing that happened. So when the deep state started this attack, so Obama, the deep state, and the media, they started their plans to use their tactics to reframe and retort and make fun of. It seems President Trump and his team began enacting this blueprint that they had already had completely built. So it should be known. For those of you who doubt Jeff Sessions, I've been watching a lot of interviews with Steve Bannon, and he said repeatedly, when this whole thing started, it was Steve Bannon, Donald Trump, and Jeff Sessions, who all met together at the Breitbart headquarters in DC and planned their entire campaign strategy out. So just please keep that in mind. Jeff Sessions and President Trump are a lot closer than most people really know. Again, not only his first support and the first person to endorse him, but he helped Trump and Bannon plan this whole thing out. So remember, all that infighting, all those Twitter wars between Jeff Sessions and President Trump, it's kabuki theater. It helps you understand a lot of this stuff a lot better. So between this team they had plenty of firepower, right? So Trump had his contacts, his experience, his associates in elite circles of wealth and power, but more importantly, he had an understanding of messaging and entertainment, right? So he knows how to keep people's attention. Remember, he had only a fraction of the campaign money that Hillary Clinton had, but he knew how to get attention and keep people's attention. He understands messaging. That was a key part that he really understood from being in the public eye for decades. He got earned media. He got a lot of free media by saying a lot of these things that he said. Everybody would give him as much attention as they wanted, right? Now, who else was on their team? They had Rogers and Flynn. So one thing that the Anons constantly say, Flynn knows where the bodies are buried, right? So on this team of patriots, they had Admiral Rogers, head of the NSA, General Flynn, former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and we'll get into just how important that is a little bit later. But they also had Sessions, who understands politics and prosecution. Again, if you're on the outside and you haven't really been reading Q's drops or paying that much attention, you might really think that President Trump and Jeff Sessions don't like each other. But remember, kabuki theater, right? He was part of the team from the very beginning. So this team all came back. They all came back they came together for one unified purpose, and that was to make America great again. Now, because they had collected everything in advance, they already had everything that they needed before the calm before the storm statement by President Trump with his cabinet in the Oval Office. Q tells us again, a lot of this is just kabuki theater. We're watching a movie. He's already got everything. All that they're doing is helping warm us up for what's going to happen. They are trying to get the public prepared, right? And we're seeing these, if you understand, if you read Q's drops and you look at all the different macro picture of all the different pieces of news, you can see the strategy comes directly from Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and Machiavelli, The Prince, namely feigning weakness before an attack, right? So a lot of this kabuki theater is showing the infighting, that's showing themselves to be weak, drawing their enemy to attack, and then coming up with a hammer fist, right? They're misdirecting their opponents to their true intentions. So they're playing the same game the DNC plays, and this is a lot of cues misdirection. Look over here while I'm going to come around back here. I used to say it's like President Trump has a laser pointer and the media are all cats. All he does is says something, points a laser pointer on the wall, and the cats run straight into it while he does something, signs an executive order, makes a deal with another nation, does something behind their back while their eye is off the ball. They've also been keeping their cards very close to their chest, right? So Q has done a great job about letting us know a lot of different things that are going on. But what they are truly doing behind closed doors, even we don't know until Q tells us. And there are a lot of things that they just have not made public yet. So they've been doing a wonderful job. We should also remember a few more things about Jeff Sessions. He quietly amassed over 66,000 sealed indictments, right? And there's a lot of conjecture on these two things, just know. In a typical year, there's about 3,000 sealed indictments federally throughout the country, right? There are 66,000 that have been amassed in the last 2 years. Now, also remember John Huber, who we'll get into more, has a team of 470 different investigators. So maybe that helps you understand why there are so many of them and what they're working on. Under Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, we arrested multiple sex trafficking rings totaling over 3,000 different arrests. Now, this is important. There are a couple of charts out there that show that President Trump, under his administration, has exponentially prosecuted more sex and child traffickers than any other president ever in history. And it's a beautiful thing. I'm a parent. I have 4 kids. That is one of the things that I support probably more than anything else. Get those scumbags off the streets, hopefully off the planet. And that they've been doing a very good job of that. And Jeff Sessions was leading that charge. They've also cut the strings of corrupt politicians who put America up for sale. And that's a big point of what Q and President Trump are doing.